Shalom, shalom, family. Today I would like to share an article. Let me get this right. And this article is called The People of Canaan. So I'm going to be sharing the article along with a book called Eden, the Biblical Garden Discovered in East Africa. And this book is by Gert Muller. I'm also, and it's just maybe like a paragraph, I'm going to speak on the river um, that's located in Genesis chapter 2, I think it is. I have to go back and look at that, but I know it's in Genesis, the beginning of Genesis. And also the creation. I'm going to be sharing little, maybe a short paragraph, the Ancient Black Hebrew, Volume 2, that talks about the shape of the skull of the Israelite at the time of the captivity, just briefly. So I'm going to start off with the article. It says, The People of Canaan. I hope I don't have any background here because they have a Columbus parade and they're playing drums and music. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm not going to make it long just in case I get a lot of interruption from that parade. So it says the term Canaanite, hold on just a moment. The term Canaanite can refer to many different people, some of whom were ethnically Nilotic. Most of the high places of Judea hills, for example, were under Egyptian control from about 2000 to 1178 BC. Through biblical archaeology and biblical anthropology, we have come to know a great deal about the people who lived in the land of Canaan. Their shrines were built at high elevations near water systems and they were later fortified. They were masters of stone work and left behind standing stones of monuments proportion. And she's going to go ahead and show you in the article. This book, excuse me. These stones here. She's picking up these stones here. This is a photo by Dennis Cole. It says these standing stones, or these standing stones at Tel Gezer date to the period of standing stones erected in Salisbury Plain in England around 2500 BC. Now we have to know that Cushites and Hebrews migrated and all across the Mesopotamia and beyond that. They started, a lot of the Cushites began around 2000 BC, I think it was, and they migrated all the way up through the Mesopotamia, all up through India. So it goes on to say that it says the high place fortified mounts are called Opel or Opel. Some of these here, where they everywhere they migrated, they left their prints of their culture and their language and so forth. It says, which means Hebrew. It says the root of the word opel is op, and pertains to a complex, interrelated ideal, seeing optic, on guard, opus, wall town, opida, and sun shrines, opera, or opera, opera. Anyways, I'm trying to probably getting the word, but you see it. Served by a caste of priests known in the ancient world as Hapiru, Haburu, or Hebrew, and Apuru. Again up here, Opiru, Apiru, just basically mean Hebrew. Then it goes on to say, the oldest elevated here, the oldest elevated settlements were near water source. The oldest opal in Jerusalem is near the Gihon Spring. Now, when she said Gihon Spring, I'm thinking Gihon. I think she's saying Gihon River. I don't know if there's a difference between a river and a spring. But when she brought up the word Gihon, I just wanted to read a little chapter out of the book called Eden, the Biblical Garden Discovered in East Africa by Gert Muller. And he goes on to quote in the book, I think it's in chapter 5. This is what it says. Now, mind you, this is the Gihon River. And this is a paragraph from a book of Josephus. It's called The Gihon and Pison River. It says, Josephus gave an account of the river of Eden in the Antiquities of the Jews, where he explicitly located Eden. He proceeded to name each river, explaining the meaning and where he thought the river was located. It says, and this is Antiquity Book 1, Chapter 1, 3, and 1 through 4. It says, the first thing we notice that Elohim planted paradise in the east. Second, we notice that Gihon, which Josephus called Gihon, Geon, the Nile. He called it the Nile. He called Gihon the Nile. Denotes that arises from the east. So it just means arises from the east. This is interesting because this is not the agreed Hebrew etymology of Gihon. Josephus, as a priest from Jerusalem, would have known the meaning, which is why his other etymologies concur with the agreed Hebrew etymology. It is also, or it is almost as if Josephus was speaking in code. And it goes on to say that the primary interpretation of garden being in the east and Gihon meaning that which arise in the east, and is that paradise was located near where the Nile arises. This has three implications. First, the historical understanding of Genesis 2:6, chapter 2, verses 6 phrase, eastward in Eden, to mean Mesopotamia is not how the phrase would have been understood by those in the known in Josephus' days. Second, it means Josephus explicitly places paradise in the upper region of Cush at the Nile source. Third is that in the account, Gihon is the river closest to paradise, despite the fact that Josephus' four rivers are in different parts of the world. We can still locate the Garden of Eden in East Africa. Using this testimony, geographic common sense, however, would make the Pison, Delgad, and the Parat also in the same region of the Upper Nile. You know, I see a lot of videos, especially from those in brothers and sisters over in Africa doing. They have some their YouTube channel, and a lot of them keep saying that Garden of Eden is in Africa. I believe it is too. Now, it's like what East Africa, Northeast Africa is what they call AKA Middle East. That is Africa, but not that land over there. I really believe, because remember, all those resources and stuff, the diamonds, pearls, gold, all that is located in Africa, mainly in Africa. But I digress. But I'm kind of leaning towards the fact that the Garden of Eden could very well be Africa, in Africa. We know Middle East is not Africa. There's not no such word. That was just coined back in 1869, November 1869, when they created the New Canal, and that was for political reasons to separate Egypt and Israel from the rest of Africa. Egypt and Israel is Northeast Africa. It's part of the rest of Africa. That was a one landmass. When Joseph and Mary went from Jerusalem to Egypt, they walked. They walked. The same with the brothers. When they went to Egypt, when the famine, they walked there. It was one mass where you can walk. I had some maps that show that, but I'm not going to try to look for it because I don't want to mess with what I have here. But anyway, so let me go ahead and finish this. It says, then it goes on to say the oldest. Let's go to the oldest. The oldest elevated settlements were near water source. The oldest opel in Jerusalem is near the Gihon Spring. Similar sites include Deir Tassi in Egypt, Jarmo in Iraq, and Tel Hoseina in Iraq, of particular interest to the Paleolithic population that lived near the Raven or Waden, known as Wadi and Neftu near Jerusalem. Now, the Neptuans population employed in microflint weapons, stone tools, and primitive agriculture. Um, Artistic expression include rock drawing and wall painting, and they were sea travelers between 12,000 and 10,000 BC. There are about 40 Paleolithic sites in the hills surrounding Jerusalem. Many of these near Bethlehem. And there's a Bethlehem also located in Africa. Surrounding Jerusalem, there are at least 28 Neolithic cities that fit the same description, elevated shelter near a water source. Goes on to say here that evidence of human habitation in the area of Bethlehem between 1000 and 10,000 BC. Before I read that, I'm going to go back here and look at the Nephians. Now there is a Nephians. Um, Let me go here. Let me see. It says, let's go here, and then I just want to read this here more, a little more. It says, let me go back at the top. Let me see if I can go to the top. Natufians, the original Black Africans of Israel. And there's other articles I've read on the Nephilim as well, but I just want to go ahead and read this one. It says 7 or 8 thousand years ago, in what genealogists call Holocene or modern times, a black tribe from Africa established themselves in Palestine. The New York Times, and when I read her article, it's going to concur with this article right here. It says the New York Times report this spectacular fact in many of its editions between the year of 1857 and 1932. It says the skulls and thigh bones of the indigenous of this culture was unearthed and studied for the first time between 1928 and 1929. The archaeological sites were first pinpointed as Supa near Jerusalem and later a cave, Mount Carmel. It says, as always happens with the discovery of the earliest African global diaspora, the Western archaeologists who carried out the dig designated them with an almost meaningless and obfuscating appellation, the Natufians. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. It says the first authoritative account of the first and original Black African Israelite, aka the Natufians, were given by Sir Arthur Keith to the Congress of Prehistoric and Prehistoric Science. It was perceived then to be one of the greatest riddles at archaeology. It goes to say the Black African Israelites, according to Sir Arthur, these original Israelites were clearly a Black people of African descent. The osteological analysis gave scientific backing to this theory. They had classical West African facial features, as well as dilophotic skull index, dolosaphic, dolosaphic, dolosaphic cephalic skull index. This word is kind of weird. Sir Arthur has stated. I had that word packed down when I was doing my little reading and kind of got tight tongue. But anyway, it says, I'm going to read an article, not an article, but it's a little paragraph from a book called um, The Ancient Black Hebrews, Volume 2. It says, The Forensics Proof Simply Explained. And this is by Gert Muller as well. So in his book, just verifying what this paragraph is saying what I have highlighted. Let's see. And it's just really short because I'll tell you where the people are mainly are located. It says the the Dallas-Saphatic skull, if I'm pronouncing it right. It says they are indigenous into hot places, tend to have more enlarged skulls because oblong shaped lose heat better than round ones. So it goes on to say also that where is it at? Oh my goodness. Let me put it says this cephalic index because I think it says something about the cephalic index in the other. It says up in the upper paragraph. I think it says something about cephalic. But anyways, it says what is it about skull shape that informs us about the climate to which the possessors were indigenous? We need to understand that the purpose of the skull is to protect the brain. One of the crucial ways in which it does this is by regulating its temperature. In the hot places, the primary objective is to allow the skull to lose heat. In the cold places, it is to retain heat. So we know that we are from a climate, a hot climate, um, um, which also agrees with this little article. Actually, agrees with the book called "The Ancient Black Hebrews," Volume Two, "The Forensic Proof Simply Explained." Then it goes on to say at the bottom here, it says several features stand out quietly different from the Natufian, where a long-headed people with the long back skull in the back. I should have got a picture of that. But anyways, it goes on to say that they had cap-shaped occiput, occiput, the lower part of the head. Okay, so long but kind of like dropped at the back, I guess. I'm looking at one right now. Um, okay, then it goes on to say, secondly, right here, secondly, the dimension of their heads were greater than the pre-dynastic Egyptian. Thirdly, their faces were short and wide. Fourthly, they were prognathous with projecting jaws, long jaws drop. Fifth, the nasal bone were not narrow and high, but formed and wide. And you know, we got that wide, and it'll run through my family. And low arch. Sixthly, their chin was not prominent, but were masked by the fullness of the teeth, bearing parts of the jaws. That's a definition of a Negro, if not anything else. So, anyways, I just wanted to read that part because she did mention them in her writings. And this article is called the Rostov Livewire, Natufians, the Origin Black Africans of Israel, Part 1. So, anyways, I just wanted to share that because she did mention them in her article, which is right here. So, we are talking about Negroid people in the land of Canaan and Israel. At least that's what my finding is, I think. Then she goes on to say that the Natufians, I'm sorry, y'all, population employed microfin, weapons, stones, and primitive agriculture. Artistic expression included rocks drawing and wall painting, and they would see travelers between 12,000 10,000 BC. There are about 40 Paleolithical, Paleolithic sites in the hills surrounding Jerusalem, many of them near Bethlehem surrounding Jerusalem. There are at least 28 Neolithic sites that fits the same description in elevated shelters near a water source. Evidence of human habitation in the area of Bethlehem between 1,000 to 10,000 100,000, 10,000 BC is well attested along the north side of the Wandu Karitum, where there are three caves, the Iraq Amar, The the Kala and the Katafa. These caves were homes in wooden landscape overlooking rivers. The Tafa archaeologists have found the earliest evidence of domestic use of fire in Palestine. Now, let's get over here to tell you where on the Canaanite retrospect. Uh, the Canaanite retrospect. Here it is. This is part I really wanted to get to, but that's okay by reading the rest, the prior information. That was some good information too. The Canaanites in retrospect. Bible passage that speaks about the Canaanites reflect authors who lived well after times of patriarch. The Canaanites are viewed by these later rites, especially the Deuteronomist historian, as decadent, adulterous, and deserving of being displaced from the land, even terminated. In Genesis 10, the people who descend from Noah through his grandsons Sidon and Heth are said to be originally inhabitants of Palestine or Canaan, because before it was called Palestine, it was called Canaan. And I think even before it was called Canaan, it was called, oh my God, it was called Galilee, I think. At least I was looking at a dictionary, an old dictionary. But I do know before it was called Palestine, it was called, before it was called Canaan, it was Canaan, Palestine, and then Israel. So, but it was called another name before even Canaan. So anyway, it goes on to say that in Genesis 10, the people who descended from Noah through his grandsons Sidon and Heth are said to be the original inhabitants. This is supported by evidence from many disciples, including linguistic, archaeology, anthropology, and genetics. In 2 Chronicles 8:7 and 1 Kings 9:20, the term Canaanite is used to distinguish the Israelites from the other clans living in the land. However, it is clear from Genesis 10 that the Israelites were related to these Canaanite clans. The so-called Canaanites were blood-related Afro-Arabian people whose ancestors can be traced back to the Nile Valley and ancient Kush. And I'm going to show you a map here of Afro-Asiatic. Now here's a map here. Show the Afro-Asiatic Semites, Omotic, Kushites, Shatic, and Berber. These are Afro-Asiatic languages, all here. So when she says here, that that the so-called Canaanites were blood-related Afro-Arabian people whose ancestors can be traced back to the Nile Valley and ancient Kush. We know Kush is an Afro-Asiatic language. Even Semitic is an Afro-Asiatic language. It says, it is clear from the analysis of Genesis genealogical data that the ruling line descended from Noah intermarried. So the Canaanites and the Israelites constantly intermarried. And we even see that in the Bible, all over the Bible. Noah married a Ethiopian. We know Joseph married into the Canaanite. We know that Abraham had a child by a Canaanite slave or Egyptian slave, which is Cush. And this goes on Solomon, David. They marry within those marriages. Now, check this out. Okay, I'm going to wait till I get there because she's going to mention something that it takes you back to Joseph and his wife. When Joseph married he was a priest in Egypt. So I mean, it was a daughter of a priest that David married into because David was from a priest line as well. If you go back and read that story, it talks about how I think her father was a high priest or he was a priest within in Egypt at the time. Now I'm trying to call that back. I'm pretty sure. It just came to my mind. So it goes on to say that It is clear from analysis of the Genesis genealogical data that the ruling line descended from Noah intermarried. This was the custom among the ancient. This was the custom among the ancient Cushite rulers. This means that it is impossible to say that the descendant of Ham and the descendant of Shem are different and unrelated people. Genesis 10 acknowledged this fact by listing the people as descendant of the same patriarch, Noah, and by designating the lines of descent as clans. We are not talking about different ethnic groups. Further, the Genesis 10 records tells a story of the dispersed across the ancient Afro-Asiatic world. Let's check this out again. The Asiatic world. This is the ancient, at the time, the ancient Asiatic world. It's more of an update, but we still can use this as Afro-Asiatic language. So if language, that's the world of the language. Seven different unrelated people. Genesis 10, we got this fact by listing to people as descendant of the same patriarch Noah and by designating the lines of descent as clans. We are not talking about different ethnic groups. Further, the Genesis 10 records tells a story of the dispersal across the ancient Afro-Asiatic world. So I understand. This too is fully supported by finding in linguistic and archaeology and anthropology and genetics. The Kushites' migration has been established. Nimrod, Sargon the Great, ruled over a great empire in Mesopotamia. Yet Genesis 10:8 states that he was one of Cush's sons. The list The list of Canaanite people in Genesis 10 attempts to reconstruct the confederation of the peoples living in Palestine before the Israelites arrived after wandering in the wilderness. The difference between the lists is telling. Genesis 10 is much longer and more descriptive than Genesis 10:15 through 19. Traces the Canaanite people to an otherwise unknown descendant of Noah named Canaan. Correct. Which was Ham's son. Canaan fathered the Sidons. His firstborn is Heth, and then Jebusites, Amorite, Girgashite, Hivites, Archites, Zenites, Abadites, Zemarites, Hamadites. Later, Canaan clan spread it out. The Canaan frontier stretched from Sidon all the way to Gir near Gaza, and all the way to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zebulun near Lisha. So over there in Palestine, those are descendants of Canaanites, or descendants of Cush. And also, you have the Israelites also there as well. They've intermarried together, and that's why they are persecuting these people over here because they know who those people are. They know Israelites are in Palestine, living there amongst the Canaanites, which they call the Palestinians. It says in Second Chronicles and First King 9:20, only the Hittites, Amorites, and Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites are identified as living in the land, and they are identified. And these were Hamites from the descendant of Canaan, which Canaan was descended from Ham, and Ham was the son of Noah. They're Hamites. Ham means burnt face. They are dark-skinned, melanated people. They were not Mediterranean or European. They are Hamites. And look just like the Israelite. They had to say that's why they married amongst each other. They were cousins. It says second or brothers. You mean Shem and Shem? They were married among themselves because even the Hamites and the Shemites was priesthood. These people had shrines built all over Africa. They came from lines of priesthood. It says in Second Chronicles and First King 9:20, only the Hittites, Amorites, and Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites are identified as living in the land. They are identified as non-Israelites. So what happened to all the other clans? Many intermarried with the Israelites. See, they said right now, these are the one that was left. in 1 King 9:20. These are the name that was left in the land of Palestine, and they are identified as non-Israelites. So what happened to all the other clans? It says because many intermarried with the Israelites, though the priestly line of Israel intermarried exclusively with other priestly lines, not all not all of which were Israelites. That's what I'm saying. So the the Hamites or the and the Shemites were priestly, and they married among each other. They married among each other. And to this day, they still marrying amongst each other in the Palestine, what they call Israel. Okay, it says Genesis tells us that these are clans and not ethnic groups. That's important because all the clans listed in Genesis 10 are bloodline. Yes, they are. They came to the sons of Noah. They are classified linguistically as Afro-Asiatic, and their ethnicity is Cushite. They spread across the ancient Afro-Asiatic dominion, taking their language and religious practices with them. That's why it goes back up in here and says, when they're showing the building of the stones at the top of this article, they took their culture everywhere they went and their language. It said, then it goes on to say, uh, and their religion, took their religions and their language practices with them. And so the confusion has arisen because in Genesis 10, the Hebrew word goy has been translated nation, and goyim has as nations. The Greek Septuagint render goy as ethnos, and goyin as ethin, and the plural, both translations are misleading. Yes, it is. Genesis 10 says that all these people are descended of the same patriarch, Noah, and are therefore related. They do not represent different nations in the modern sense, nor do they represent different ethnic groups. They are related clans which recognize their blood ties and which perform work which was expected of their caste, priesthood. That's what I mean. Some of the occupations involve metal work and scribal and expertise. Um, sorry, to go back up. I don't want to miss. I'm getting all excited. Here's a good article. It says once we set aside the misconception that Genesis 10 is a table of nations, we're able to explore it's not a table of nation, but a table of a nation because they are the same people. What came from the same line, Noah, Ham, and Shem. Like, how can it be a different nation? You come from the same father. Come on, y'all. Table of now between Isaac and Esau, that's a little different because the Most High said it was two different nations within her womb. So that's a whole different story. It says, once we set aside the misconception that Genesis 10 is a table of nations, we are able to explore the relationship of the clans and to reconstruct the confederation based on what is known about the Proto-Saharan language spoken by Abraham ancestors. Abraham ancestors, y'all, he was Hamitic and Shemitic Abraham. Now, I think there's an article she said his mother was Hamite and his father was Shemitic because his father Terah was a Hebrew. It says Reconstruction of the Cushite Confederation. It says the confederation of these people in Genesis 10 are based on kinship and occupation, which indicate a caste structure. Castes are characterized as egdogamy. Priestly lines intermarry exclusively, metal workers intermarry exclusively, scribe intermarry exclusively, merchant of people dye intermarry exclusively. This was the caste structure of the ancient Afro-Asiatic dominion. Let's go back to the dominion. This is what you're talking about, Afro-Asiatic, Semitic, Afro-Asiatic, Semitic, Amitic, Cushite, Shattic, and Berber. They were all married among each other because they were the same people, same clan. So then she says, it is possible to reconstruct Genesis 10 confederation using using what is known about the Proto-Saharan language spoken by Abraham ancestors. Talking about these people here. So we so these languages were characterized by two consonant roots, a the biconsonantal system. So we begin by eliminating the vowels and searching for the most basic consonant unit in each of the names. To illustrate the method, we will use the name Hittite and Hivite. The most basic root for these names is HT and is the same as the name Het or Heth. Genesis 10 tells us that these two clans are of Heth and a confederation. The name HT appears in the Hebrew and Arabic word of word for copper, Nahas and Het. Nahash means serpent. As an objective, it means shining bright, like burning copper or burned copper. So the evidence suggests that the clans of HT were Bronze Age coppersmith. The serpent image was sacred for them, just as it was for Moses and the people of Israel in the wilderness. It was as they looked upon the bronze coiled serpent, a solar image, that the people were saved. Genesis 23, verses 3 to 20 tells us that the descendants of Heth were living in the land of Canaan where Abraham lived. He bought a burial site from them. They considered Abraham a prince of God among them. Genesis 23:6. The Hittites spread in Anatolia, Anatolia, I guess that's right, and introduced iron for work there. They didn't call themselves Hittites. And agorism and art agorism, but Ness or Nus or Nasi or Nuzi, and their language called Nesli. And they were Afro-Asiatic metal workers, and the root of their original name is NS, as the letter N remains unchanged in the older Proto-Saharan language. We can be we can be what's my fairly certain. Oh, I lost my place. That this was the name of the Anatolians, the Hittites. They are likely source of over 5,000 Harite texts found in Nuzi in Mesopotamia. These are written using the Akkadian script, the Akkadian script. Then it goes on to say, it's a long, I think I'm probably end, I'm almost finished. It says the clans of Het and the clans of Ar were related. The Archites and the Avidites were another two clan confederation. The word Arvadites referred to the resident of the Mediterranean island city of Arpha, and other ancient source. Arpha, extremely ancient city before the Phoenician. It was populated seasonally by people passing from North Africa to Asia. Some of these were Nephilims, and we know again that Nephilim was also Shemitic Negroid, what they call Negroids today. It says the Arvadites had close ties to the Egyptians and paid tribute to the Cushite pharaoh for protection from the Assyrians. The Cushite pharaohs Tahara, we know Taharka, called the land of Canaan and Syria Kor, which is a compound of K for Cush and Hor for Horus. Kash, Kawash, Aquakai, and Cush are cognates referring to the first people who were considered deified ancestors. In 2010, the 4,400 years old tomb of a Cushite priest was found in Giza. The tomb belonged to a priest named Rotku or Rakha, and dates to the 5th dynasty between 2465 to 23 BC. In a message sent to the king of Tyre, Taharka wrote, O Amun, what I did in the land of Nubia, let me do it with your tribute of Kor, or Syrian Palestine, which has been turned aside from you. The older root of the name Archite and Arvadites is Ar, and its origin is likely Proto-Sahara among the Igbo or Nigerian. The scribe claims were called Ar or Or. The word Arab means father, is scribe. The earliest known writing originated in Canaan or Palestine, among the coastline people of the Red Sea, the Phoenicians. The Arabic word for throne is arsh or ash, and likely related to the scribal function attached to rulers. The Egyptian Asar means the serpent of Asa, deity. The people live in Arvad, Tyre, and Sidon, and employ serpent imagery in their temples. I'm ending it right here. It says, these are Israelites who were associated by their names with the patrimony. They are Arak, and it finds it in these in First Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah again, and area was found in these verses here. Area means scribe messengers of God. So it appears that the Ar clan were scribes or messengers. This is further suggested by the name Arvad, or Vad means to speak, and Sancris. The association of the name, the association, this is further, okay, so the association of the name Ar with the scribal caste is further demonstrated by the discovery of Aramaic scrolls for Arsmes, the satrap, satrap. To this Egyptian administration passed Samsic, and to Egyptian ruler named Nekhar-hor. Okay. And it goes on to say some variation of the name or Ar include Ar-Shem and Arsim, Artik, and Arthrax. And all of these are figure names and historical texts. So anyway, you are just go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just shut this down. I wasn't going to read the whole article, but this is a really good article with a lot of resources behind it. You can go and pull up the article called it's called The People of Canaan. Oh, The People of Canaan, and it's by Alice C. Lindsay. Right down here, just punch in The People of Canaan by Alice C. Lindsay, and you get the article among many articles that she writes. Now, some of the stuff I read, I have questions. I have to dig deeper into them, but most of the stuff that she writes, almost over 90%, she gives her resources. She gives her resources, and that's what I like about it, because I can go back and look up those resources. Not only that, what really makes her writings interesting for me is that everything that she does is based on material use. It's not her feelings, her how she feel, what she think. It's always archaeology proof, linguistic proof, migration studies, climate studies, molecular genetics, and biblical. So she based all of her findings based on those sources, based on that material. And that's what I'm learning to do too, because you can't just look at a person nowadays and say, oh, you from here or there. You have to study those areas if you're talking about a nation of people. So anyway, I thought it was interesting. I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. I said shalom, y'all, and have a blessed